So here are the basic supplies that we're going to try and treat this prolapse with. Please be aware that if it doesn't get any better, he's going to have to be taken to an exotic vet and seek some medical attention. But first, we're going to try a little home treatment and remedy to see if we can get that prolapse to release and actually retract back in. So what we have is just have a little 6-quart Sterlite. Got to make sure it's clean. So this one, before I put some water in it, I cleaned it, and it is nice and clean, and it has real nice warm water in it. It can't be too hot. It's got to be more like, like a nice warm bath. If you want, you could put a temperature, a thermometer in there, and you can test it. You can generally just test it by feel. You don't want it to be cool or cold, and you don't want it to be hot at all. You just want it to be nice and warm. And then what we have here is just pure cane, regular sugar. This happens to be Community Coffee's version. And what we're going to do is, there's no real measuring of this. We're just going to dump this sugar in the water, and we're going to make a nice sugar water solution. Stir it up a little bit with my hand to dissolve it. You may not get it all dissolved, but we're going to try and dissolve that sugar for the most part. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go grab him, and we're going to let him soak in this warm sugar water solution, for about 10 minutes, or as long as he will tolerate it. Now, the other thing to make sure is if the water's too low and it doesn't actually cover, when he's resting in there, if it doesn't actually cover his hemi, then you got to make sure that you put a little bit more water in there. And if the water's too high and he can't keep his head out of the water, and you don't want him to actually inhale or ingest any of that water. So you want to just make sure. It's a good idea to have a cup. So I got an extra little solo cup laying around over here. So I think that's probably about the right height, because we've done several of these baths, with stuck shed and some things over the years. But every gecko is a little bit different size. So if that's a little bit too much water, then I'll scoop a little out with this when we put them in, and if it's not quite enough water, I'll just go get a little bit more in this cup, and we'll just keep adding some water until we get it right. So I'm going to put the lid back on this for the moment to try to keep that warm. Also, in addition to the sugar, we've got some honey. So after his soak, we're just going to put a little drop of honey on his prolapse. That, generally speaking, that will help ease that back in. And then I do have a couple Q-tips here. These are kind of last resort, hoping not to use these today. One of the things that is often a cause of a prolapse is a sperm plug, and it's very common in reptiles, where basically happens a lot with first-time breeder males, where they'll have excess sperm at the end of the deed, and it'll harden or create a bit of a crust or a scab like on the top, which will prevent it from retracting. And a nice moist or damp Q-tip is a nice way to try to remove that. We're probably not going to do this today. I'd like to start with the soak and the honey, and then we'll look at them again tomorrow. And if we do notice a plug, we'll see if we have to resort to the Q-tip. I prefer not to touch it, try to leave it alone. It's a very sensitive area, as you can imagine. And then obviously I have some hand sanitizer, because I'm going to be handling him, and he currently has a portion of his body outside of his body that's not normally outside of his body. So I just want to make sure that I don't have anything on my hands that can harm him. So first thing I'm going to do is do a little hand sanitizer. Let that dry for a bit. Also, we're talking about prolapse today, but like I said, the dark side of the moon. A lot of things can go wrong in the breeding of reptiles, or even just in the keeping of reptiles. We've had females that have been egg bound. The vast majority of them were able to with a warm soak and maybe a gentle massage, they were eventually able to pass those eggs. Last season we did have a single female, unfortunately first-time breeder, that we were not able to get those bound eggs out. She unfortunately did pass away. So it does happen. It's not uncommon when you wait, 30, 40, 50 days for an egg to hatch, and sometimes babies hatch with deformities. You have to deal with them. You have to provide special needs. Sometimes you have to say goodbye to them. So, not an entirely uplifting video, but it's realistic. And when you're breeding reptiles or even just keeping reptiles, this stuff happens. A lot more common things occur, like simple injuries, particularly when you're breeding reptiles. Males and females don't always get along. So, even if they do get along, oftentimes the act of breeding can be a bit rough. So you will get some nicks and scrapes and things here and there. Those are pretty easy to take care of. Sometimes they don't get along at all, and you can get some pretty severe injuries. And if you're not paying attention, potentially even death of the male or the female, or sometimes both. So another video we'll talk about all those things. Today we're focused on prolapse. First time breeder male. His name's Cinco. He's a pure blood emerine. One of my favorite holdbacks from last season. Really hope that we can get this fixed and cured. At the very least, he is done for the season. So even if this does solve his problem and he's able to retract, we will not be breeding him again this year. He will rest for the rest of the season. And if he does well, maybe next year we'll think about it again. If we ultimately have to seek veterinary care for him, he very, very likely will never breed again. So let's grab him. Hold on. All right, so there is my boy Cinco, and I'm going to tell you, because I mentioned in the beginning, I got to put my glasses on here. I mentioned in the beginning, come on little buddy, that I noticed this yesterday. So I was able to grab the female out of here yesterday, and I did a quick modification to his enclosure yesterday. There you can see his prolapse. I'm going to go ahead and get him in the water. He's not going to love it, but let's see. Yeah, see, it is just high enough that it is just covering the base of his tail and ultimately both of his hemis. So let's let his boys soak in there for a little bit in that sugar water solution. So here's what our cage setup for adult males typically looks like. So we're in a VE6 rack system, which you'll see on the room tour on the YouTube channel on Monday the 11th of January 2021. But in the VE6, the heat tape is across the back. This is the back, this is the front. The way we set them up is we have a moist hide in the rear portion that has eco earth. It's a mix. It's eco earth and tropical soil and a little vermiculite. We use this for our lay boxes, but we also put it in the male boxes because they like that nice comfortable hide, and they also seem to, many of them seem to want to dig in it instinctually, so we leave that. They have a hide over here on the cool side, water dish, food dish, calcium dish. All right. Well, the first thing I did yesterday when I noticed his prolapse was I got rid of this because I don't want any of this foreign material. So no cocoa fiber, no soil, no vermiculite. I don't want anything that could possibly stick to that prolapse to be in there. I took out his hide, his water, his calcium, and I took out his paper towels, and then I went and sanitized and cleaned his bin real good, which I'm going to do real quickly again. You can just enjoy Mr. Cinco, and I will be right back in a second after I sanitize this with some wipeout and hot water. Ain't nothing like soaking the boys in some nice warm water. All right, we're back. So normally when we do cleaning day, I wouldn't leave all this water in here. I would dry this up a bit. But one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure that he has a clean, very, very clean. So instead of, you know, every couple days or once a week or however often your cleaning schedule is, now that we're dealing with a prolapse, we're cleaning every day. So we're going to make sure he has fresh paper towels in here every day. I normally do on a typical setup 1 layer of paper towels. I'm doing 2 layers of paper towels because we want to keep him moist. We want to keep that prolapse nice and moist. So I'm going to put 2 layers of paper towels in there. And grab my handy dandy sprayer, and we're going to get this not sopping wet, but we're going to get these paper towels nice and moist. All right. Again, we're not going to put that hide that has substrate in here again. I'm going to actually take his cool hide. I'm going to put it all the way in the back. So hopefully he will go in there and rest on that nice warm paper towel over the heat tape, and might help him get a little bit better. So we're just going to have to wait until he's been in there about 10 minutes. Go ahead and cut.